class. I'll have Ben in here in just a second. It's going to be 45 minutes Q&A. Raise your hand like you're in class. He will call on you and you can ask your questions. Feel free to take videos and photos. If you have any questions for me at any time, I'll be floating around the back of the room, and my name is Amanda, and I'll get Ben in here for you.
That's my cue to get out of the golf cart. Or a baseball catch set, that's up here. How's it going? Good. We're at 10. I guess I'll stand that way. Yeah, sorry about the microphone. It's kind of goofy. So yeah, this isn't. If you're a musician and you know what a master class is, that's not exactly what this is. That would be false advertisement. But be happy that that's not what it is, because it would mean everyone would come up here and play separately, and then I would pick you apart. These began with a music teacher would moderate, and I really liked that idea. And the reason I keep repeating that at the top is because I like the idea. In practice, it ended up being all about schools and administrative things that not always that interesting. But the good part about it is that they kept reminding me by their presence that when you talk about music, it's something you learn, and that's the fundamental of it. That's the reason you talk about it ever at all. Otherwise, you just play it. So, talking about it is, in my estimation, just to improve it or put it on the same page as someone else. That's what music theory is. Music theory doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you how to explain what you were doing to someone else so that you can play it. And when I was a kid, I was real disappointed in the rock stars of the day for not telling me anything. I thought in interviews, maybe they should tell me if they were in band. I would like to know if Gene Simmons went to band camp. Be good to know. Like, what's the basis of their understanding of music and how you get there? I was learning how to be a musician, by playing in youth orchestra, taking lessons sometimes, listening to music and doing all the things that I would think make sense, and it's a way of learning music. And I suppose I applied that stuff to rock and roll, and it makes sense. Maybe we don't need rock classes exactly, but it's interesting to know how they got there. And one of the great things about my job is that I get to sit down and commiserate with other musicians of my level, more than, less than, whatever you're measuring that by in record sales or bench press. That you just realize that it is a very frustrating endeavor, music, especially when it's applied to business. Like when it becomes commerce, or when you put yourself out there, put your ego on the line, or you attempt to do something that's more, than just it being in your bedroom. And that is, I think, where the music. That's the kind of thing you see in the mean streets of Highland Park. So I think when you put yourself out there in any kind of way, it becomes scary and frustrating and all those things. And I like to be a unindicted co-commiserator in these things, because I think it's useful. Like I just sat with John McRae, we're old buddies, and we will sit and bitch together like a couple of old men, as if we were. And it's useful to me, it's helpful, because the things that you do in music they don't change, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you're aspiring and younger, you have certain frustrations. Those certain frustrations are the same for me. So in that way, this maybe is a master class for musicians, in that if you want to tell me how horrible your new song is and why the second verse isn't finished, then I'll tell you that the thing I'm working on right now is terrible and the second verse isn't finished. So yeah, that's my sort of prepared opening statements. And at this point, I just tell you, come at me, bro. Yes, sir.
So I do composition. I write for like rock, but I also do like instrumental stuff as well. And I find that the most frustrating thing for me writing rock music is in vocal melody and finding something I'm happy with. And I find that it's always a lot easier for me to write melody for instrumental areas or things like trumpet lines or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can't seem to quite bring the same thing to vocal melody. I've tried writing it separately and then trying to sing along with it, but it never seems to work. Is there a way I need to approach it differently?
Well, I think we might have the same problem. I mean, what you're saying is a melody to you is something that you feel like you can generate with an instrument in mind.
Yeah.
When it comes to articulating that melody vocally, there seems to be a problem.
Yeah.
Is that a problem with your singing? Or because, I mean, honestly, that's my problem, is that I think of melodies and I assign myself impossible things to do. You can't read through them. They don't really articulate that way. They're not particularly pretty in certain things that are over or under my range. I usually just find a way to cheat and get there. Because I think the melody is not negotiable. You know, I think certain gestures in a melody are obviously more violin than they are trumpet, and more of those than they are vocal. But I think the voice can do it all.
It's not like the difficulty of it. It's that I'm never happy with how it sounds. Like even if I were imagining like an opera singer or someone that's really good singing it, like doing it, I'm never happy with like how it lines with words or
right. It's possible that, hold on a second, Amanda, do they have anything that resembles water in this whole festival? Yeah, that would be amazing. That's a really rude way to ask for this. I was only doing that to her. I respect her. You can go back. Listen to my bullshit. Well, I don't know. I'd have to hear it. My guess is that a voice can't get away with. This is a little abstract, I may be wrong. I'm just trying to know. I think it's possible that a voice can't easily get away with an overly verbose melody. Or rather, if you think of melodies the way that Leonard Bernstein did as sentences, the best sentences in music being poetic. The most poetic sentences being the ones that are ambiguous, poetically ambiguous, that are missing sections. Where you start to sing, certain things happen like, well, I need to breathe. That's one of the big ones for me. Why isn't the melody speaking? Because it's not natural for a person to go, and not breathe. That doesn't tell a story. You don't feel that as a person, that someone is speaking to you as melodically. So a voice, I would argue, is the ultimate sort of honesty detector or poetry detector. And my bet is that a melody that you're not happy with vocally could have parts of it removed, so that the sentence doesn't resemble how to change a tire on a Range Rover, but it resembles a couple of lines of poetry that are ambiguous, that are missing chunks. That's really where you bring people in the lyric too, is by not being specific enough, but being ambiguous enough and correct, like not pulling out. You know when you pull out the weight-bearing column of a melody, field at all, but it's surprising to me how much I can pull out of melodies. I mean, it's actually something that I scour my songs for while I'm finishing them, while I'm sort of seeing what's working and what's not. I just see what I can pull out. And it's amazing sometimes. They stick with me, the original. And sometimes years later, I'll hear all those extra syllables I cut out. I go, God, I still hear it that way. But it's not the way it should be. That's my guess, is that. Because I don't really see any reason that a melody shouldn't be vocal as well as instrumental, and that if you pulled the right things out of it and left just the poetry, just the thing that makes you feel like you're there, that I'll bet you it even sounds better on the trumpet or the violin. I could be wrong for those two, but that's my guess. Next? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, I read that you attended University of Miami at first on a drum scholarship, and that always kind of blew my mind because you're an amazing pianist. So how do you square that circle, or are you the most prolific drummer we've ever heard of but not heard of?
Well, I think I'm a better drummer than I'm a piano player. But that's because I learned it. Thank you. That's the best. Thank you. Thank you, sir. That's because I learned it from the time I was really young. What I would say is the right way. I learned piano the right way for my career, but I learned playing drums the right way for everyone else's, so that I can go play a session or go play with an orchestra or sight-read things, or even I haven't really touched it in years. Every time I sit down to it, it's like it's all the neuropaths seem to still be intact. The thing is I was a precious percussionist. Did things exactly like I was taught. Did them right. Worked very, very hard at it. If other percussionists were watching me, I would, right? I would watch other percussionists, and it would just be like a caddy about the way like I was in the club. When it comes to piano, I don't care who watches me play the piano. I'm doing it wrong. Because I'm expressing myself. I learned a lot about music that way that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And I learned to play piano by playing the things that I wanted to hear. So I had a melody in my head, and that's still the way I do it. I create away from the piano, and then I go to the piano. And that's a very old composition trick, as you know. It also comes with pitfalls, is that when you bring it into the real world, the thing about bringing compositions into the real world, though, is they start to burn off as they come through the atmosphere. You lose parts. You lose stuff. Things that felt so good, like, nope, sorry, that's gone. That doesn't work in the real world. Sorry, can't breathe there. Sorry, not enough syllables. So you suck now. And as the gravity pulls your song down, and you just have to hope that the idea feels so amazing when you started that by the time that it makes it through the burnout, that it's still intact. Next, yes, sir.
I would have been happy to play for you and have you pick apart my playing. I would just wanted to say that, and complain. But aside from that, I've been waiting too long to record all my stuff onto an album, and I'm wondering what kind of advice you could give about how much to really shave down on those demos and get prepared for showing it around to other producers and getting ready to actually record the stuff. I know it's been a while since your first album. You probably have a lot more tricks up your sleeve now because you know a lot more people and all of that. But any advice about getting together all the materials and people needed for that first album?
Well, I think for me, I hit a lot happier time in my creatively as a musician when I stopped making demos. And I stopped making demos before I was supposed to. In other words, I started to realize that there was only recording music and not recording music. A demo is a weird place because were you supposed to not give it your all? It's not as good. I'm going to make something that's not as good. It doesn't make sense to me. Just make something you want on a record. That's that. And let it teach also. I mean, I think that's the main thing, is that making music, even though you're trying to achieve something, have someone hear it, get the necessary, because no one does it alone. You have to have someone has to pay for it. someone has to buy it, and then all kinds of other things have to happen in between, and I do recognize that. I'm real familiar with the inside of that. But I've never seen anything that would compel me to think that it wasn't best to just concentrate on making the best music at that moment that you can make. So if you've made, quote, demos, you haven't waited too long to do anything. You've made them, move on. That's what I would say. I think it's a big mistake to keep revisiting recordings without some kind of, if you've got a real good solid idea why you need to be recording something over and over again, because I've done it. If you really think you know why you're doing that, yeah, maybe. But probably the best thing to do is if the first thing that you did was pull out your iPhone for voice notes, and you did it, did that get the point across? Is it generous? Does it give someone something? If someone, finds this out in the woods somewhere and presses play, are they going to have a better day for it? That's all. That's it. All the other stuff, I think, falls in place, because it has to. It's like you made the best that you can do, and then you have someone that comes in and produces it. Sad thing about this era is that the people who know how to make records have no incentive to help out the people who don't, because they're in pain. I would love to take 2 years and go produce new artists. I would love to do that, but I actually can't afford to. I can't afford to keep crew and people on a payroll and then just go make a record for nothing for someone. And it's a terrible economy that's true. I think that's probably the saddest thing about the new economy of music business. But I think you just stick with generous communication, period. Not this is a picture of how good I am, or a picture that proves anything about you. You just make a recording and it's like, here, have this. So when presses play tonight, I'm glad I have that. That's what you go for. Anything else is bullshit. All the stuff about the demos and stuff, because it's not a resume. Music's not supposed to be a resume. As soon as I stopped making demos, everything happened for me. The first record label I signed, I said, wow, you guys were really great. They've heard us play at a club. Do you have a demo? No. You don't? No. How can I hear your music? Well, we made a little single on a 45. Great, can I have that? No, you have to buy it. If you enjoy it, you buy it like everyone else. So that's it.
I'm not a musician, but I'm a musician. I did my for you.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I have a 3-part question.
Okay.
What's your favorite key to sing in? And then what's your least favorite and your favorite song to sing?
Wow. So, I don't really have favorite things. I don't have favorite keys. One of probably our best known, one of our best composers and conductors of our time in America asked me the same thing. We had this awesome conversation. It's the first thing he said. He's like, what's your favorite interval? I don't know. He's like, well, mine is a fourth, specifically between a D and an A. And he played it for me because that's my favorite. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. He's like, well, what's your favorite key? I was like, I don't know. My grandmama died in major. It has to have some context. Then all of a sudden it means something. It's about and as far as favorite song, I don't really have a favorite song. I don't have a favorite song to sing. Different nights, different moments are more my favorite. Last night, the form and the storyline of a song that I never appreciate very often suddenly seemed pretty good to me, which was the song Luckiest. It's like, yeah, that's good. That's working. I just suddenly appreciated the construction of it. I'm like, wow, I'm glad I did that there. Now this works here. And I just had a moment of it. I might go for the next 3 or 4 years and just kind of mechanically go through it. I don't mechanically perform it, but in my mind, it's just. So I wish I had favorites. I don't. Yes, sir.
You have one that's turning into Belinda, and you don't want to sing anymore. You're sick of it.
Nick Hornby wrote the words to that Belinda song, and the Belinda song is a guy has to sing his one hit over and over again for years, and it's painful for him because it's about his a split with someone that he wishes he was still with and he regrets. I think that, and Nick and I talked about this, I think his perception of how it works for a songwriter who sings their songs is the same misconception that almost every screenwriter seems to have of it. I can't imagine caring. And it's not because I don't like what I've written, it's just that because after I've written it and gone through all the stuff that it takes to finish it, it's really like a Doctor in Dead Bodies or something for me. It's like I'm very detached from it. I don't have anything that reminds me of something that I wish it didn't remind me of, and I've got plenty of reasons to have that in my songs, but I don't really mind. And I also don't have anything I think I have to play, which is nice too. I think there are some artists that have songs that they can't get away without playing. And you know, Brick was a big hit. I didn't play Brick for years. I was fine, wasn't a problem. At that time, I had to play a Dr. Dre cover for that time. Far more requested song. But since it wasn't my experience to go to jail, come out, and my cousin was sleeping with my girlfriend, and now I don't play that one. You know, I just go through. So no, I think there may be artists that don't write their material, but maybe they mean more. I have one verse. The first verse of Luckiest is actually difficult for me because I had to play it for a friend, a memorial for a friend who had passed. And I associate it with that, and I don't associate it with why I wrote the song. I associate it with that moment, and even physically, I have a hard time holding everything correctly to do it, and it's frankly very annoying for me. I now can sing it in tune again. For 3 years, I stopped breathing. It's a weird thing. I go, and so thank God everyone's singing this, because if they could hear what the shit was going on stage. Yes, sir.
Are you going to sing Brick tonight?
Yes. That's very funny.
What about bitches ain't shit?
No.
What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure? Oh man, it's just not even that interesting. My guilty pleasure is printing photographs. It's only guilty because once I print it right in the darkroom, I want to do it over and over again. And I'll do it for like 4 hours straight and have like 40 prints. It's just something's wrong with that.
Do you have an artist that's a guilty pleasure that maybe you would want to tell your family? I know they're all you drink in their own way, but are you Miley Cyrus fan?
Oh yeah, but I'm not guilty.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I don't. Well, it just depends on what I decide everyone doesn't like, and I've never bothered with that too much. I mean, but to me, it's all has so much context. You know, it's like if I had been 20 when Miley came out, that would be a guilty pleasure, because it just get to the age where it'd be like, whoa, what is this? But, you know, like my first exposure to Miley Cyrus was her writing me fan letters. So I look at her as like kind of an odd sort of removed daughter figure where, you know, I root for her. Like if I see she has a hard time with something on TV, like I send her a note saying, you killed that, don't let them bother you. You know, like I think of her as like, and I don't really know her that well. So she's like my daughter pen pal or something. I had, and she's actually a great singer, so why not? I mean, I used to, no, because I've always had pretty cool taste. Like, when I look back to when I was a kid, it's like I think about the stuff that I liked when I was a kid. It's like, that's pretty badass. Sometimes the dodgy area is what people who are still defining themselves by their music. You know, if you're in your 20s up to your mid-30s, you have guilty. You know, like there's guilt then, because that's the mating age where you don't want to throw anyone off of offered of being a possible mating selection. So you want to be political about it. You know, it's like, I know I shouldn't like this, but can we still mate? Yes, sir.
Okay, so my first time I ever saw you perform was, I'm guessing around 708, you played a show in Normal, Illinois.
Yeah.
And you, I think, for the first time played Eppington.
I made it up on stages.
Okay, so my question to you is, how often does the song get written? Have you written a song like that, where it's just kind of right then and there, and then it's on an album?
That have made it on the album. Let's see. Effington, which I freestyled in Normal. Yeah. That's mostly there. I mean, I'd say it's probably 75% there. As of the recording that we have. And I think it may be online. I'm not that sure if it's on, if you can find it on YouTube. Some of them can. Cologne was that close. I freestyled that in Cologne. It's called Rock This Bitch in Cologne. I just changed a few words. It's mostly there. Hiroshima from the same album was Rock This Bitch in Berlin. It was on stage in Berlin. So 2 nights in a row I got one, and then I got one in Effington. The song Free Coffee on that album, I wrote in Rochester, New York on stage, basically thanking the local, I think they're called Javas actually, across the street from the music school. Yeah, thanking them for giving me free coffee, but kindly pointing out that they only give people who already have money free coffee. It's like back when I could have used it, of course they don't give it to you then. I thought that was fun. Yeah, maybe 5 or 6 times. Cool. Yes, sir.
So you were talking about how when you were trained in drums that you did everything the right way, the classical way, and then you switched over and you can be more expressive now that you play piano the way that you want to play it.
No, not more expressive.
Okay.
Probably less fearful about what I play.
Sure.
Because the point is expressive, but I like to have more technique if I can have it.
Sure. Well, so my question for you, I know you've written with concerto now and you play with orchestras. I'm actually a classical violinist, but I'm starting to kind of bridge the gap between more rock stuff and that kind of thing. And so I'm wondering if you have advice for bridging the gap. Like, I feel like I'm still very stiff when I play more of a rock style because I am very, very classically trained, you know, and so if you have kind of any advice in that area.
Yes. Undomesticate yourself a little bit. That's mainly it. I don't think that you're not going to be short on technique. You're not going to be short on feeling, the highway, technique. You feel like you should stay on the highway because you've been potty trained at gunpoint. But you're allowed to just go for it. That's really all it is. There's no wrong when it comes to expressing something that's rock music, and it's in you, and you just have to allow yourself to do it. It's inappropriate. Playing rock music involves being inappropriate. Inappropriate in relation to what we call classical. But a lot of things are inappropriate in rock music that are classical. When I was coming on, it's inappropriate to play more than 3 or 4 chords. In the 90s, I was, that was my guilty thing in the 90s, was that my guilty pleasure was playing more than 4 chords. That was actually it. Was that no one was allowed to do that. I was much more ashamed of the fact that I knew a lot of music theory at that time than I was at anything that I listened to. So it goes both ways. Just, play drum. I don't know. That's a very, I'm going to have you sign a waiver now. It's like that though. It's like disconnecting. You have to, the difference between my percussion and my piano playing, at least at a certain part of my life, was that I didn't know any better on the piano, and therefore I could just dispense with all formality and just tell the story. Now, the problem with that is that my vocabulary was ill-equipped to express everything I wanted. So it's hard to take that vocabulary on. The more vocabulary you take on, the more domesticated you are. And it really is a domestication thing. It's like musical domestication. It's like you can't just like, in the real world, you just can't go find a pothole and dry hump it like you're doing a Michael Jackson video. If that's what you wanted to do, that's not what you should do. That's not appropriate. But the reason that you don't do that is also the same reason that you don't play off the rails like you need to. If we were just sitting and playing, and you were to play something that I described, more than likely what I'd be asking you to do is do it wrong.
Well, so then when you write your concerto and you go and work with these orchestras, do you feel like you have to kind of modify your style in a different sense to fit back into that world?
No, I don't think so, because they're playing what I hear is what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like, I give them direction. It's up to me to give them the direction. If I was like, just dig in like you're not supposed to, and ask my violin friends like frog this and that, how are we supposed to say that, or do I want them to play this too hard but with a mute, or would I like them to play it in the wrong position or something? I have to tell you that on paper, and you do it.
Right.
And
So
some of
then
that I
describe
did
it.
actually. I had them doing odd things. They're all playing between notes sometimes. That's not wrong if I say it. It's wrong if it's in Beethoven. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Courtney. This is my husband, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
We're from North Carolina. My husband saw you when he was in his 20s at the Cave.
Wow.
Yeah.
First time.
Yeah. And I'm 44 today, so I'm really excited to be here. Thank you. I'm a mental health worker, and I work primarily with sexual assault survivors. And I was watching Kesha. I'm a big fan. I was watching the video Rainbow.
Yeah.
And I saw a familiar face.
Yeah.
And I guess I want to say, I would love to hear about that collaboration, but I also just want to thank you, because we need more men in the Me Too movement, and that album, Praying, Rainbow, and Woman, those songs in particular have meant a lot for sexual assault survivors. And I just want to pay you that compliment to say, I believe that art can change the world, and I'm glad to see you are a part of that.
Oh, thanks. I mean, she's a brave person. She's not ever likely to do exactly what she's told, which is awesome.
I like that.
And she, it's a funny thing though. My reason for wanting to work on that record was that Kesha, a little bit like Miley, came along well after me, and I was, someone that, because I came before, older, was looked up to, and Kesha would ask me all kinds of questions. And I wanted her to have the experience of realizing that she didn't have to ask some dude in order to call the shots. So my position in working on her record, like it actually was in Sarah Bareilles' record that I produced, was very similar, which was part of our problem that we have with the way we think of things in work is it's a two-way street. A lot of the female artists have been treated so long as if the producer is going to be some kind of dad that tells them what to do, and that's their experience. And so when Kesha would go, well, I sang this little part, but I don't know if it's right. It's like, you can't say that. That's your part. You run the show. I'm working for you. I am the bitch in this case. And she took to that pretty quickly. So when she would have an idea, I would put it into the orchestra. And then I would say, Kesha, you orchestrated that cello part. And she'd go, no, I did. I was like, you did orchestrate the cello part. That's what you have done, And so that's what, regardless of what any lyrics on the record might have been, I felt my feminist contribution was empowering her and try to stop the cycle of her asking permission or for a guy granting it. Because the guy she was working with before, regardless of what did or didn't happen, and I believe her because she's my friend, but I wasn't there. But what I was there for was some of the production of the records that she worked on. And it was like, I would never tell another human being to boss them around like she was bossed around for those records. It was abusive. I don't do that to a guy, I don't do that to a girl, it's not right. So the fact that the business is still geared that way, is, I think, something. Yeah, I was talking to Sarah B about producers, and I was like, why don't you produce your own record? Produce my record. How many female producers are there out there? Why aren't there any more chicks producing records? Because, God, Joni Mitchell's records are self-produced, and I can't think of many more. Someone may come up with one. Think about how many female mixing engineers there are. I know one. I've known one female producer in my life, Susan Rogers. That's it. Anyone know any? That's stupid. Because there's so many ideas, we're missing half the ideas, which is terrible. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, you talked about abstracting the melodies earlier, basically by removing certain parts of it. And I thought it was interesting because that's also one of the qualities that I really like about your lyrics.
Thank you.
That while you do have specific stories in them, they're also abstract and poetic in a way that I feel like even though that's starting to happen to me, I still really relate. And I mean, some songs have meant a lot to me in certain terms of concrete certain things. And I'm almost wondering, how do you do that? Like, I can have certain stories in my head or certain things that happen. It's like, I'd love to get that, into a poem or into a lyric somehow, but at least when I do it, they're just doing what happened to me. And it's a great journal entry, but not something that's gonna make it out. I'm just wondering how you do that.
Well, that, first of all, that would be the highest compliment I could be paid, is that is what's happening. That's what I shoot for. And actually, it is something I have to shoot for. Like, maybe there are people that don't have to work at that. I wouldn't know. I don't know what the process is. But I know for me, at the very least, what I fall back to is if I can't find that, because you're looking for something that resonates, something that lights up. And I think some of it is a certain state of mind where when you're just completely relaxed, you see it. You see that one thing, you go, well, why is that reminding me of? Why is that reminding me of that? Like I'm writing a book right now, and I was thinking about my time in elementary school, and I was thinking about a lot of different social things also that I had been trying to explain about the way that I grew up, and they're complicated. It's in the South during desegregation. My family was we were on the broker side. Everyone was fine, but there was a lot of kids that had a lot of stuff, and I was trying to think about all this and what this meant. And the image of a yellow laminated hall pass came to mind. And then I remember taking the hall pass and just walking through the halls however I wanted to, because I stole my own. And I started walking around. And then I realized I needed to scrap everything I had said, because now I needed to follow that. It had to be about this little yellow hall pass. Because really what I earned, or what I learned in school, was that I didn't belong to any particular group. And that was really valuable. I mean, anyone could have taken that hall pass. It was just sitting there, and I stole it and I made another one. And then I just walked all over school with my hall pass, did whatever I wanted to. There was like 900 students in that massive school. And it's like the way I grew up allowed me to think that I got a hall pass. I don't know. And I feel like that about writing songs. So all that came together. And I guess what I'm saying is that sometimes you can just sit, relax, don't write. Wait, see it, report it, don't write. That is effective. But when you write, I think you can say just what you mean. Just say exactly what you mean. And if it's a song and it doesn't fit, fine, I'll cut it down, that's fine. So you write it like it's the most boring thing, like your journal entry, fine. At least you have what you need. Then start boiling it down. Boil it down, boil it down. You'll know when you cut what I keep calling the weight-bearing column. There'll be something you take out that doesn't work anymore. Why does it not work anymore? I just took out this one word. That's your word.
That's the hall pass.
Yeah, that's the hall pass. And I think that's really, but recognizing it is important, because recognizing that what you're trying to do is create a bit of an algebra equation with variables, so that I can put in a 10 and it works for me, you can put in a 2 and it works for you, it's like poetic algebra. It's real important. And sometimes it's really hard to get to, but I think you have to know it, so you know it. So now you have the frustrating, very frustrating journey, task of making it so. That's where the hair gets pulled out, that's where you hate yourself, you hate writing, you can't stand it, you don't know why you would ever do it, everything you do sucks, you'll never get there, it'll never be finished. All those things pound your brain. And I get through that every time I write a song. I'm embarrassed that that's what I get through every time I write a song. I should just be writing it. But I don't. I'll see. Wait, I want to make sure I get 7 people. Let me go with you.
Cool. So I grew up in a family of musicians, and one of the things they could all do was improvise.
Yeah.
And it's also one of the things I love about your concert work. So one of my favorite things is when you did the chat thing, and you're improvising the people you matched with. I thought that was hilarious. But it's something I've never been able to do. I was in a jazz band, but I just strung licks together. When I play the guitar, I can string licks together. But on piano, I cannot improvise. So how did you get the confidence, and where do you draw that from?
Well,
Maybe.
no, the confidence is important. Because I think, boys may be talking out of the ass, but I think that the confidence maybe isn't exactly confidence, but it's a lack of self-awareness and a lack of self-reflection. This is sort of supported by brain students because, and you can, I get my information on these things from Dan Levin, which you can read his books, and he's great. Luckily, I can call him and ask him these things. And he's had to talk me through a lot of frontal lobe stuff, which I think is interesting. And another scientist who does a lot of brain and music work, Dr. Charles Lim. Both of them on the front of what they do. Both of them say the same thing, which is when a musician is improvising, the very part of the frontal lobe that seems to be lit up while someone is talking about themselves, considering themselves, reflecting on themselves, using the words I, me, my, any of that stuff, it's not firing at all. When someone is improvising and they're happy with it, everyone else is happy with it, it's the only way you can measure it. Is it successful improvisation? Well, I seem to think so, everyone else does, so it's subjective. In those subjective situations, that part of the brain is also turned off. As soon as you ask someone a question about themselves, it fires back on. So, when you feel that you don't have the confidence, you're applying an editor into your line. You're letting the editor into the room. You're saying you're no good. You're self-reflective. I don't know what someone does to turn that shit off. Because
I can't meditate either.
Well, it's tough because there are times where I'm like, no, it's not happening. It's just not happening. And I know that little pea brain thing is firing, and I'm thinking about me. I can't help it. Part of the thing about being a classical musician is turning it off. It's very difficult because you have to be aware of yourself. It has to be accurate. It has to be all the things that you worked on. It's interesting stuff. Look, I have everyone sign waivers again. But one of the things that one of the neurologists got me to agree to do, and we haven't done it yet, is my taking, I guess the equivalent of mushrooms, was this psilocybin, and disrupting certain parts of the brain and improvising in a brain scan. I'm down, I'll do it. I don't like drugs at all, but I would be interested as long as there's someone who knows about it. It's going to help me out. But the idea is what's interrupted, what's in the way. And I guess when I'm saying that about classical music, I also imply that there's something in the way. It's not that it's not there. You don't have to create something that you can't create. You can just do it. You just basically have to go crazy. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming back to Ravinia. So
Oh, yeah.
Treat having you here. You mentioned Leonard Bernstein earlier in the conversation, and I think his 100th birthday would be like in a day or two. But was he, you cross over rock, pop, so classical, and back, and everywhere in between, and he was kind of that way too. He definitely promoted all of that in a time when it wasn't somewhat promoted.
What was that last sentence?
Leonard Bernstein also did the same type of thing. He felt very, he promoted all kinds of music where people felt like, well, you're a classical conductor, you should live in the classical world and that sort of thing.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I think that was the idea. And he really promoted a lot of stuff. And my question is just, does he have, or did he have an inspiration on you in some way or another as you know, an American musician, American composer, those types of things?
Yeah. I mean, later, more consciously later, I mean, I liked West Side Story when I was a kid. The older I get, the more I appreciate, or the more experience I get, I should say, the more I appreciate the miracle of Bernstein's personality crossed with his intellect and his musicality is just all perfect for that time. We need more of that. But it's tough because, see, he's someone who could explain to you what he was doing and still be responsible to do it. A lot of artists can't really hang on to those two things. Like, they can't really be a grown-up at the same time as they make music. And so you find a lot of rock musicians who need their diapers cleaned. And I like the fact that he was able to explain it. And I mean, my day gig at this point is at the National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center. And they gave me a title and paid me, and I live there sometimes. Put on shows and do children's concerts. I've studied a lot of Bernstein since then, especially this year. I was involved in the Young concerts at the Kennedy Center. And yeah, it blows me away. It's amazing. I think we need more of that. His facility and everything about him is something that would be very, very difficult to aspire to, but it has informed even something like this to me that I would feel the need to do. Bernstein's amazing. I mean, I love. If anyone feels gets bored at night and going through a YouTube thing, chase down his Harvard lectures, Leonard Bernstein's Harvard lectures, especially as pertains to what we were talking about, the syntax of melody. That's very interesting. Syntax of melody is fantastic. I think the unanswered question is what it's called. Okay. He didn't have one more. We got rules.
You mentioned Kesha, and I was just wondering, what made you orchestrate Sleazy when you did? Because after you say "I'm again" and then you hit the 3 trills chords, yeah. I mean, it was just joyful. I see you just smiling. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I mean, I think it's fun. She's a great communicator, Kesha, and she's got her own language when she writes and when she sings. It's definitely her. As soon as she said that she brushed her teeth with a bottle of Jack in that first song, she created a genre, a line. Absolutely fantastic. I think it's fun to take my little superpower trick of reharmonizing something as a musician and apply it some dignity. That's what she loved about it. She was like, it sounds so pretty now, so dignified. So she'd like to do that. Well, she'd like to be able to do that. I'd like to be able to sell 10 gazillion records. So we're even. I take a picture now.
All right, guys, if you're over there, you're going to have to get over into this section for me.